Okay, so yeah, what I like to tell people is this is just a lens through which to like I think look at conflict, and it's not so much my theories. Believe my theory, all the other books are wrong. It's actually a way to try to organize all the theories you will hear in your in the literature. It's like a way to taxonomize and then better understand. Um, so I say so it all starts from this point I said, which is that we fight when we either ignore or are willing to pay the costs. And so the first way we've just talked about one of those, it's when the people who are deciding don't pay those costs, they can afford to ignore them. They might also have a private incentive. So if that warlord or leader or autocrat thinks that they're more likely to stay in power if they take their group to war against the group's interests, that's a huge problem. The second is in the book what I call intangible interests, but you could think of ideals and ideology. It's all the reasons we might choose to go to war despite it being costly because we get something that only violence delivers. And that ranges from glory and vengeance uh, to the pursuit of ideological ideals like liberty or sovereignty or God's greater glory or something, right? Something that we're like we're willing to take this risk of violence because we get something that we can't get through compromise. The third is when we misperceive the situation. So when we get that basic cost benefit calculus wrong, which is to say, well, we don't realize that it's better to settle than to fight because maybe we're overconfident about our abilities to win. We misperceive our enemy, and so that's all about the ways in which we can be wrong day after day after day, even when the stakes are very high. The fourth is when we're uncertain, and we could get into the details, but we're actually not sure how strong we or our adversary are, and so not only does that mean we could end up gambling and erring, but it also creates these strategic incentives and dynamics where we can't ever believe our adversaries' protestations that no, there'll be severe consequences. We're very strong. Don't do this because we're worried they're bluffing. And so uncertainty introduces instances where it's actually strategically optimal for us to fight some of the time, despite it being costly. And then the last economists, political scientists call a commitment problem. It's sort of like another sort of good tagline would just be unreliability, which I just don't trust my adversary to keep this deal. I think something will happen in future that they'll have an incentive to renege, and so the deal unravels before it can begin. And the classic example is when my adversary is going to be more powerful in future. And I think I can lock in my advantage now, and then I won't have to worry about them taking advantage of me in future. So those, and it's sort of funny to think that I guess if you told me 2 years ago that most explanations for most conflicts fit in one of those five categories, I wouldn't have believed you. I would have thought, oh, surely there's more, and there's a whole grab bag of other things, or there's some other huge categories. And over time, I actually persuaded myself that the five capture most things. And so we merely need to learn to look at all of these purported causes of war, decide whether or not they fit in one of these logics and how, and it's going to give us a new perspective, or it's going to point out a bunch of things like the ethnic and ancient hatreds that actually don't fit in, and maybe these aren't a cause of war.